So welcome to this session. This is a joint session with PWN and EDHEC, and we're delighted to have a joint session with EDHEC because EDHEC's one of our strong corporate partners, and this is the first one we've done this year because of the COVID challenges. So tonight's topic is really our way of working with EDHEC to try to help people understand what are some of the challenges. So what can they be optimistic about career progression, career opportunities, what are the challenges, what are the blockers in that. And we've got the panel with 3 people on it who will introduce themselves as they go on. I'll introduce myself now. My name is Amanda Nose, and I'm responsible for the partnerships and sponsorships with PWN. And I'm going to hand you over to Carmen first, who is responsible for our memberships, who will quickly explain to you about our relationship with EDHEC with respect to those memberships and opportunities. And then to Cris, who is running the Diversity Club at EDHEC. So with that, over to you, Carmen.
Thank you, Amanda. So this is Carmen Redondo, and I don't know if you can see me properly, but I'm in charge of the membership for PWN, and we are helping our members to understand their needs, what they are looking for. And here what we are offering to our members is to have a lot of content in our webpage, and we are also connecting our members together. And we are creating a lot of events. You know, those events right now, they are online, but normally we can have it in person. And we were planning to do with EDHEC last year and afterwards with the students, which unfortunately they're on hold, and hopefully in 2021 we can do them. And the membership is a paid membership, which is 110 euros per year. But for EDHEC, we have a special code for the students where you can only get the partnership for the membership for 40 euros. And the advantage of this is that you can connect with all the other city networks, and you can have the full benefits of being a member. And many of the students has joined as a student, but then they can extend for 1 year this membership and they can benefit from it. So if you want more information, you can ask Cris, or you can send me an email to membership@pwn.net. Thank you.
Thank you. Cris, over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm Cris Campos. I'm a student in the 2021 MBA cohort. I'm very happy to be working in this diversity group, and to have the support of the Professional Women's Network. It's important for all of us to see in this kind of times, very uncertain and very difficult, to have some ideas about where are we going, what are we going to do in our post-MBA assignments. And this kind of meetings will help us to find some answers, you know, because in this case, it's quite important to know where are we to be in the context of what we are doing right now, and what we do in the future, and what kind of tools we have to face that future. So I'm very happy to be here, and well, I hope that all of you can enjoy this conversation. I want to have an open conversation, to be like an exchange, because it's the most important, to have an exchange of ideas. And I think it's the turn of Sophie to present herself.
Thank you, Cris.
So the format of the discussion is we're going to have a 20-minute panel discussion with Cris, Sophie, and myself. Then we're going to have a 15-minute breakout session, which will be led by the panel participants, where we'll actually explore with people what do they feel optimistic about, what do they feel would help them, what might be blocking them, what are their challenges, etc. And then we'll come back for 20 minutes of general questions. So let's start with the panel discussion, and I'll have each speaker introduce themselves. So again, the topic that we're going to be discussing is realistic optimism around career opportunities and progression. And the first speaker is Sophie, and I'm going to be asking a question to Sophie. So Sophie, you're from Schneider Electric, and Schneider Electric, and you in particular, have committed to diversity and inclusion, and that is shown in your top 30 ranking in the Financial Times report on employee reporting of diversity and inclusion. So what does that mean for career opportunities for young people who are coming to work for you? Essentially, what does diversity and inclusion really look like in practice in your company?
Thank you, Amanda. So maybe to introduce myself, my name is Sophie Borgne. I work indeed for an international company called Schneider Electric. I've been working at Schneider for the last 20 years. I now lead one of its division called Digital Plant, where we develop solutions for the industry of the future. And over 20 years, I have seen really a big change towards the way we approach diversity and inclusion. It always feels good to get some external recognition on what we do, but it feels even better when you get to put it into action, you know. And in Schneider Electric, we have a mix of a very strong policy on diversity and inclusion. So the company overall is defining a lot of actions that are driven worldwide. And on top of the company policy, we have individual empowerment so that each of us can make a difference as well on diversity and inclusion. So in terms of policy, we had some great things. We have now extended, for example, the parental leaves. That is something that in French, we don't even realize how lucky we are to have this kind of governmental policy, but it's not the case or to the same level in each country. So we have somehow given to all our employees around the world the same kind of possibility to take some leave when they become a parent, and it's really parental leave. It's not only for mothers to give some balance. So we have some policies, but what is important is to have the policy to make things possible, whatever your profile, I would say, whatever your gender, whatever your nationality, whatever your background, so that diversity is not seen as a blocking point for evolution. But it's not driven by quota or just for the sake of having a nice percentage of women in leadership that you can show. On top of that, we want to really work on inclusion. So it's not enough to have a diverse workforce, but we want that each individual in this workforce is included and has the same impact on the organization. So that's coming a lot from policy, but as well a lot from individual action. And I would say as a manager, I get to recruit people, I get to promote people, and each and every recruitment or promotion decision that I take is somehow an opportunity to make sure that I promote as well diversity, and I really put our policies into my individual day-to-day action. And to do so, well, I am somehow part of still a minority, being a woman in a male-dominated environment. But the point is really not to have a quota and to say, okay, I'm going to recruit that person because she's a woman. The point is to look at candidates for what they bring. And when I recruit a technical leader, I want the best possible technical leader. What is important is that we don't discriminate anybody because of a certain characteristic in their profile. And it's, well, we made a lot of progress over the years. There is still room for improvement, and it is a very interesting journey. What I really want to share is that whatever organization you are part of, there is, of course, what the organization around you is doing, and you as an individual, whatever your role, can have an impact as well on promoting diversity and inclusion. And it's really important to feel empowered to have this impact.
Thank you. Yes, it's interesting that you talk about this idea of getting everybody to be part of it, because one of the analogies that I used to use when I worked in a culture team looking at diversity and inclusion issues was that diversity is being invited to the dance, but inclusion is actually being invited to dance. So it's not the idea, great, we have this percentage of women or this percentage of people of one nationality or one age group or one type of background. It's really that those people are fully integrated in the company and fully have the same opportunities as everybody else. This is the idea of an inclusion.
Absolutely, yes.
That's great. I think it's a good start to learn about your experience. It's great to hear about you, Sophie, and actually to be able to have some kind of role model in a large industry like as Schneider Electric. I have to congratulate you and the company for the position in the list of diversity inclusive companies, and that opens a lot of it opens also an inclusive environment for all of us. I also have a question for Amanda, and it's she also has a very interesting career in engineer, software engineer, right? IT engineer. And okay, my question is: you have spent 30 years working around the world in Australia, Asia, Europe. You know, now you're back in Nice, and you have been working for several large companies. You can later tell us which companies you have been working for. The most important thing and the point of the question is, in a very difficult male-dominated world, and what kind of tools, skills, and attitudes have helped to advance your career? Oh, okay. What kind of attitudes have helped to advance your career from engineer to senior marketing director? You know, having all that kind of positions in the IT world. Can you please tell us how you managed to go through all that kind of positions and what kind of help you got, if you got some coaching, sponsoring, and mentoring, and how they helped you to advance in your career progression?
Yes, thank you, Cris. Yeah, I have been a bit of a nomad. So I started my career in Australia. I got a software engineering degree, and I worked for Hewlett Packard Research Labs at the time when Dave and Bill was still around. It was in the 80s, and then I moved to Unisys Research Labs. And after about 6 years of experience, I moved to France. I had the opportunity to move to France. So I actually lived in Paris, working for Alcatel CIT. And I moved. Then I moved to the East Coast of the U.S. with Alcatel. Then the West Coast of the U.S. So I say I had my little tour of the world with with them, and then back to Nice 5 years ago. And in between, I also worked for Cisco in the Bay Area. So I've worked for 4 major high-tech companies, and you know, I've also moved from being, as you said, from being a software engineer through a bunch of different positions to my final position, which was a senior marketing director. And I think that what is really important, if I had to say one thing to remember, it's say yes. Often people don't say yes. They put themselves out of the opportunities that they may have. And look, like everybody, in retrospect, there's opportunities that I should have said yes to and didn't. So you can't always get it right. But in general, try to say yes rather than no. Try to when someone offers you something, try to think, how can I make this work, rather than no, that's not me. Because if I had have done that, I wouldn't have done the positions that I did. Because my degree is in software engineering, and I have a second degree in languages and communications, which French is my major. And that opened doors for me to do communications, to do marketing, to do project management, product management, different types of roles. But opportunity doesn't always knock twice. So when you have opportunities, you should take them, and you have to be able to recognize them. So that's the first point. I think the other point is there's an expression, because I want to talk about realistic optimism. I think that's important. There's expression that you may have heard in the tech industry that says that women have to work twice as hard to get half as far. And that sounds a little bit depressing when I say that. But I think that you need to recognize that it can be a reality. And why is that? And I've seen that. During my career, I've worked with people who have, excellent degrees from top schools, very good interpersonal skills, yet at one point they get stuck. Not everybody, but a lot of people get stuck in the middle, sort of that bottom middle level, management level of their career. And sometimes that is because in large tech companies, 20% of the people are women only, but 90% of the management are men. So young women coming into a company look around and say, wow, there's no one here that looks like me in management. So then they'll often go off and do other things. It's not they just be stuck and be miserable. You'll see a lot of women going off working for startups using the, San Francisco bro culture has got its own issues. But basically there's big companies, I think, really have to be willing to figure out how to help people who are from diverse populations move and get advantages in companies. Because they're often not the majority. That's a reality. So how do you get through that? Because I don't want this to be a negative thing, but I do want it to be realistic. So how you get through that is you be persistent. You also commit to learning, keeping learning all the time. People are said to have maybe 40 different jobs over the course of their career now. So you really have to continue learning and being able to take on new things so you don't get left behind. And the other thing that I've found, especially because my career started in research labs, is opportunities at the edge of the wave. So in other words, if you're doing something, if you're learning something that no one else is doing, then that's when the opportunities will come. Right? Because there's not a whole pool of people out there who know what you know. A good example at the minute is there's a whole big need for data scientists in the world. So if you've got those cutting edge skills in data scientist, you can be sure you're going to find a job real quick. So seizing that opportunity, so recognize where the opportunity is, seizing it, saying yes, and then don't talk yourself out of it. One of the things that women are known for is that they'll have 95% of the skills on a job. Oh, well, I guess I won't apply for that because I have 95% of the skills. I don't have that 5%. I've been there, I've done that and regretted it. And whereas a man might like to say, okay, I can do half of that. That's good enough. Let's go. And they have the confidence and they'll convince people to give them the chance, and of course then they get the skills. So don't talk yourself out of opportunities when they knock, and be willing to move with the opportunity, be willing to commit. But the flip side to that is also make sure that you have a balance, make sure you have a life and a family. Nobody's very excited about having president on their tombstone and nothing else. So that's also important as you move through your career. And I really appreciate what Sophie said about how her company is giving, those opportunities, and it's parental leave. It's not, women's leave, men's leave. It's both people are parents and they all get that opportunity. I think that's lovely that they have that. So that's my second point. And then my third point is something that when I moved back to Alcatel-Lucent in 2009, it was my first director position. And I worked for the head of strategy and marketing. And she said to me, look, you're a director. I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm going to tell you what I need. Okay. And this is what she told me. She said, do what you say you're going to do. So the what, right? If you say you're going to do something, do it. When you say you're going to do it, so do it on time, do it properly, do a good job of it. And her fourth point was, if you can be pleasant about it, that's a bonus. And people laugh when I say that. But actually, being pleasant is part of it. It's just like when Woody Allen said, you know, a lot of progress is showing up. So it's showing up, but it's not just showing up, it's showing up and, you know, being collaborative, being a team player, being reliable, being trustworthy. They're all soft skills, but they're the things that help advance you in your career just as much as being a, you know, hotshot programmer or being a great salesperson or, you know, all of those technical skills. They're important, but it's also important to have those other skills. And as a woman, I think you have to be also careful when you say yes, to say yes in a strategic, a pragmatic way, but a strategic way. And here's an example of that. Often you might be asked to, you know, oh, can you help organize the Christmas party or whatever? And that's nice, that's collaborative, that's teamwork. But the same thing that I learned from the same director I work for is she said, saying yes in your career up to a certain point is what gets you to that point. But after a certain point, you have to learn to say no. Because if you don't learn to say no to the things that aren't strategic, then you'll spend all your time doing busy work and cleaning up stuff that other people don't want to do. So you have to have a balance of that. And then on your last question about, and this one's near and dear to our heart at PWN, about coaching. So for me, what I see is the difference between coaching and sponsorship and mentoring. Coaching is often from your manager. So as a manager, it's your job to help your people grow, to help them do what they have to do to get the job done. But as someone who works for a manager, the manager, that's your first client. So you always have to try to be, you know, doing things that are helpful to your manager, making your manager look good, because that will help advance you in your career as well. And there's a lot of research that actually says who your manager is more important than who your company is. That's maybe more of an American attitude where people move around a lot more. But having a good manager is really key. And having that good faith relationship with the manager is also important, so that coaching can happen and you can grow and they can help you grow, and that all works well. So that's the coaching part. Sponsoring is different. Sponsoring is when you have someone who is an executive or higher up in the company who sees that you have potential and gives you opportunities outside of the scope of your normal job. So this, again, I mentioned this director who I worked for at the time, and after I wasn't working for anymore because there was a change in the company and strategy and marketing split, and we ended up on different sides. I was marketing, she was strategy. She still gave me opportunities of things to do and projects, which were really great projects. And she just asked, you know, my current head of marketing, hey, can she work on this with me? And that was great because it helped me grow and it helped get me exposure. So that's sponsorship. And then the last one, which is mentoring. An important point is anybody can be a mentor. You can be a mentor to someone else in the organization, and someone else can be a mentor to you. And I think this is where you fill the gaps. So if you want to be a great salesperson and you see someone who's a great salesperson and that's not your thing, well, then try to work with that person as a mentor. If you're great at something else, try to mentor someone else who knows how to do that thing. Because that, again, it expands your circle of influence. It takes you out of your area and it creates respect among people, because people respect you as a mentor. So hopefully that answers your questions, Cris.
Yeah, it's a good start, because it's important that part of fitting within an organization. And of course, we have talents, we have skills, but we also need some kind of sponsorship and to find the right place to develop those kind of skills. And that's quite important for us as students to know that we have those skills, and it's going to be critical in the transition from school to the business world. So thanks for your answer, Amanda.
So I have a question for you too, because your story is fascinating. So you have this experience of working in also a very male-dominated field. This seems to be a theme tonight, since we're all from technical companies. So you worked in a very male-dominated field in the oil and gas industry, and then you changed gender. So I'm interested to hear how you were treated differently as a man than as a woman. What different types of boundaries you had to put in place, and what encouraged you and what shocked you about the difference in the way people treated you.
Well, thanks for the question. I think that the most important is to understand, to start answering this question, is to understand the cultural differences between how in South America, for example, where I did the transition, it's to treat a man or to treat a woman, right? So in this case, it's a huge difference in the way that they perceive you. In some way, it's nice to be treated like kindly, nicer. But in the other hand, when they start looking a woman, they said, oh, they try to question or to give a little more, to scrutinize a little bit more your technical capabilities. So it's kind of a hard job. Uh, it's not that difficult when you have the skills to show that you perform a job. But still, is shocking for most of people to realize, oh, what happened, and it's like it's a cultural shock. So it's in that way I feel it's a huge change between the credibility that you get as a male and the credibility that you have as a female, and only for changing your image, because nothing else changes, not your technical capability, not your experience, nothing else. It's just a matter of image. From my side, it's quite important to show myself how I am, to be honest about who I am, who I was, who I have always been, and that's very important to set boundaries, because the main boundary for me is, look, is what you see is what you get. And it's quite important for me. Sometimes there's some kind of malicious um, uh, talking and everything. Actually, when I was talking with one of my friends in a different company, it's like everyone is talking about you because and some people were surprised and said, "Oh, she's so brave." Some people was kind of, "Oh, what happened to her? It's crazy. What happened?" And the most important is that it's a personal choice. And that kind of choice, in no way um, it's some kind of problem to make my job, and that's the most important. And, that I'm able to perform a job as good as anyone else, with the same quality, with the same strength. And again, we have been talking about this, and it's important that you are not perceived like attacking, like they're going to be lenient with you just because you're different. And it happens to me as a trans woman, but it can happen to different people. They can be lenient with you just for being a woman. They can be lenient with you because of your origins, and that's not what diversity is about. Diversity is about accepting people for what they are, but also to give the same kind of opportunities and the same measurement standards. It's not like we're specials. It's not like we deserve a different treatment. We just have the same treatment that any other. I think that during this process, I have been encouraged for pride, to demonstrate that I could do my job, that I can perform as well as anyone else. And actually, I have to say that I have been shocked for that sudden change of perception that I was talking at the very beginning. That you know, I had some kind of status, credibility, and from when I started my transition, I was started to be perceived like, oh, that dumb blonde. Uh, so it's kind of stereotypical, but it's crazy. It's crazy, and that really shocked me. That really shocked me how that kind of very stereotypical thinking, mainly from male guys, mainly for guys. Yeah, it's choking. It's like, okay, they look at you just for how you look, but even if they have been working with you for 5, 6 years, now suddenly their perception change because they look you in a different way. So that was kind of choking. And well, what I have to say is that as a student right now, studying in my MBA, started facing 2021 and quite optimistic to the future, not just because, but first because all of us, and I'm talking to all of you, my colleagues in the masters, we have the skills to do our to have a successful career in the corporate world. And we all of us, we have the motivation. We have motivation in our families, in our own pride, what we have to, what we want to achieve in a professional, personal way, and that give us strength to face the uncertain future. Because that's, you know, this year has been crazy, and all of us know that. But at the same time, we were discussing this well, looking at the end of the tunnel, and I think that we are prepared to cope with what is coming to us, you know, and we have the tools to craft our own future. We have the tools to create something nice, something beautiful, something to create our own destiny. And that's my main message about optimism for the next year. Well, we don't know what is coming next year, and hopefully the economical and job situation will improve. But if it improves, we should be prepared for that. And that's why I feel optimistic about this. And well, thanks Amanda for the question. And yeah, I think I feel so honored to be invited to talk in this panel. Actually, it was a surprise for me. But thank you so much for that. No,
Sorry, I just had an internet glitch.
no, it's okay.
So I missed the last bit of what you said, but you were just finishing up the end of your question when my internet decided to die on me. So can you just repeat the last little bit?
Yeah, actually, that was my doubt. I thought that I was losing you, that I had the glitch in the internet. No, what I was telling is that to tell my colleagues, my classmates, that we have the tools, we have the skills, we have the talent to do what we want, and that we have to be prepared for any or uncertainties in the future. This year was really hard, but we have the skills to succeed. And you know, we have to trust, and it's important. Something I forgot about what I said is that we have tools, and with that tools we can start building our network, because that's going to be very important to the future. So
I think the other thing to know is that big companies are doing a lot more work around culture, diversity, and inclusion than they were a couple of years ago. It's a really hot topic within companies, as is psychological safety and being inclusive of people. Because the flip side to it, especially in the tech industry, is that the war for talent is real. So if you don't treat people in a way that they feel that's inclusive, that they feel comfortable, that they feel like they can advance in their careers, they will advance in their careers somewhere else. Something that is a big difference for me coming from the San Francisco Bay Area, coming to France, is when I talk to managers who are in the Bay Area, I would ask them, what is your biggest fear? This was last year before COVID, okay? But what is your biggest fear? What keeps you awake at night? And they would tell me, I'll go into work the next morning and my staff won't be there. And I would say, what do you mean? And they say, yeah, now people just ghost. If they get an offer from a better offer from the company around the corner, they just leave. They don't even bother telling you. They just leave. Now, of course, this is very different in Europe. Europe is much more formal, much more difficult to get a job, hold a job, and so on. But it's still true that there is a war for talented people out there. In certain segments, as I mentioned before, data science, a huge lack of data scientists in the world, people who do digital transformation and so on. And so this will mean that companies also have to make it that everybody is valued. Sophie, what do you think on this point?
Well, thank you very much, Cris. I thought it was super inspiring listening to you. And in particular, your last point around what I will call self-confidence and optimism, for me is really key. Because it's true that probably the environment today is more positive towards diversity. It's true that it's important to develop your career, to have mentors and coach and sponsors. So there is a lot others can do for you. But the bigger engine for your development is yourself. And the fact that your message about the fact that you have all the tools, and by being confident that you have acquired the skills and you have the right skills, competencies, attitude, and optimism was very strong in what you said. This is really the best way to look at the future and to make your own space in this future. Your career development is your own journey. You are the one pilot of your career development. It's important to use the environment at best, but you are the one driving. So you are in the driver's seat, and really self-confidence, it's so important and probably not so easy to acquire. So it was, for me, a very strong point that you made, Cris, and thank you very much for that.
It's quite important because, you know, and about that point, that we what Amanda said about the lack of engineers, data engineers, you know, we are, that's why we are in the business school, to learn new skills. And now, you know, we have actually some of my colleagues, most of my colleagues, I was surprised about that, are engineers. And it's like, okay, how is the transition from an engineer to go into the business world? And now it's not, we're not going to be involved like in the core of the operation, but in the business part, you know. We're going to be mainly in human resources, we're going to be in financing, in marketing, in other kind of activities, not in the core business, and we are prepared very well for that. That's where we're going to focus our field of action in the future. And again, we're prepared to do that. And the most important is that if we join any company, call it Schneider, HP, IBM, or in any other field, that be completely confident that if we are going to join, it's not because we are so nice or because we're like a token. Okay, we're going to put her in that position just because. but because we are able to perform an outstanding job. And that's, for me, the definitive reason that give me confidence to the future, and actually that give us, all of us, confidence to a future. Girls, guys, we should be confident about ourselves, and that's my, from my side, that's my key point of this conversation right now.
So on that point, let's move to the group discussion. Do we want to stay in one large group, or do we want to break out? Carmen, where are we with our participants?
Yeah, I think we're 11. Maybe we can create 2 groups, or as you prefer.
Okay, that's fine. So what we're going to do, just to remind people, is we're going to break out into groups. We're going to talk about in group what makes you optimistic about your career opportunities, and then what challenges or blockers do you see, and how could companies get over those?
Okay, how long is it going to be?
About 10 minutes. Then we have 5 minutes for wrap up and questions, general questions.
Perfect. So I will create the groups now.
And just while Carmen's creating the groups, I really like what you both said, and it was one of the points that I think is true as well. Everybody is different, everybody is unique, so you have to learn to be comfortable with your own difference and your own uniqueness. It might be your nationality, the languages you speak, your gender, your age, your parental status or not. Many things go to making up the person who's in the workforce. And I think that it's important to be able to own that and have respect for that. For everybody's different, respect their differences, but also respect your own differences.
Okay, so I will send you now to the rooms.
Thank you.
So tada, and we change. Ah, yes.
Hello, the connection seems really bad on my side.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. I'm hearing you, but I'm not sure I'm in the right group.
Okay, let me see.
Well, we are not in groups anymore. There was a hard cut.
Ah, okay.
We are all back together again.
No, I'm
and
sad
despite
that
the
this ended.
countdown, it took us by surprise. Lenka was still talking, and all of a sudden we were cut.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't get the message that you was closing in
Of
one
course we did, but we were so
Didn't
concentrated.
look at the second hand.
I think that we can still continue this conversation in the main room, because it's important. And in this case, there's a very important question, and I don't know if Spencer is still with us.
I'm still here.
Yeah, okay, good. Because one of the main questions is, okay, we have been talking about finding the right working place for us in the future, that it's quite important to develop our career. And actually that was what Lenka was talking about. And, how do we find the right match? It's difficult, it's not difficult to find that the right match between where we want to work. What do you think about that, Spencer?
Well, it sounds like it almost touches on what we were talking about in our group, and we just talked a little bit about networking and the importance of that. And I think, how can we find out about a company and its culture and its way of behaving towards its collaborators and stakeholders unless we're working there? And I think, networking is one of those things that we can do. And it's important to remember, networking really is about getting people to speak to you. And so if I come along and I say, Cris, I'm really fascinated by the company you're working for. You know, can you just tell me a little bit about how you got to work there? Can you tell me a little bit about what the atmosphere is like and the culture? Those sorts of questions asked to 2, 3, 4, 5 people may help to give me an impression of the company and its culture, and whether it's something that I believe shares my kind of values and my way of wanting to work.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's quite important to feel comfortable with what you're doing, and second, with who are you working with, because that's definitely is very, very good. I would like to open the panel for questions to the people, to any 10 people in the group, and I love it because it's kind of a conversation. So if someone wants to start some kind of discussion, please be welcome to give their insights about this conversation.
Well, there was just one observation that I was going to make, which even your question there, Cris, I suppose we have to recognize that organizations are beginning to change their behavior, or some organizations are changing their behavior. So what an organization looks like to me today isn't necessarily how it's going to look in 6 to 12 months. And my feeling is that, big organizations are starting to change their behavior, and probably very small organizations and startups are probably beginning with a new and a different set of behaviors, which is all very positive. I guess my thought is that it must be really for this behavior change at an organizational level to be taking place. I think we've said for a few years now that women have to change the way that they behave, and women have to do things differently. I just wonder, is that true, or should we really be saying no, it's not for women to make those changes, it's for organizations to change their behavior?
I think for me, it's a very good question, actually. Sorry, Sophie, you want to go?
Indeed, this is a good question. Go ahead.
Very good question. I think it's just like, it's very good question. I don't know if there is a right answer, but I think it has to be two ways, in my opinion. I think that organization has to change the way they're approaching the diversity and inclusion, but also for us as a woman or as wherever we're unique, we're saying in our own way, we have to have the mindset that we should be sitting on the table, and then that we are not treated the way we're treated just because we're females, but because we have the skills and we can do it and we can manage our priorities, right? But I think it's both way, in my opinion. It has to come from organization, but also from us as well.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Naveen. It was interesting what you were saying, Cris, about self-awareness, right? And confidence and self-awareness. And I think that applies to individuals. So in this case, you mentioned women. So it's about being self-aware and having self-confidence. So yeah, we do need to change our behaviors a little bit. And then at the same time, organizations having that self-awareness, looking at ourselves and saying, wow, are we actually inclusive? It's something we don't ask ourselves every day. And you start asking those questions, and all of a sudden you realize that you have a lot of progress to make as an organization, and also over time, right? So I think we go through phases. It was sort of, women, and doing a lot for women in diversity was really important. For a while, we were very into cultural diversity. Then we moved a little bit towards having more women in the MBA. We called that gender diversity, but we really were focusing on women. And now I feel like we're opening the dialogue even more in terms of inclusion, where we talk about all kinds of different types of people, and how can our organization adapt, and how can we make changes to make a more inclusive environment. And that applies to the school as much as it applies to organizations, I guess, and individuals.
Yeah, I would also like to hear mostly now we have been talking in the panel. Now I want to hear the students. If you were able to talk the company, think about a company like a person and ask them about doing something to improve the career opportunities of the students, what would we ask for? So I would really like to listen to you about it, because it's key to understand what we want and what we need to improve those career opportunities.
Good question.
Someone who's got really something quite interesting to say on this point is a media leader in America called Gary Vaynerchuk. And he's really interesting because what he says that his job as leader of the company is to make sure that everybody in the company has what they need to do the best job that they can do at every given point in time. And that will change over time. So he gives the example, what a 20-year-old needs is not the same. That person needs something different when they're 30 and having children, and they might need something again differently when they're 45 and they have parents to take care of it, whatever. Like basically the point is that people have different trajectories through their career, and companies tend to have one trajectory. So he says that companies will be more inclusive and people will be happier and they will be more productive. So therefore it's better for the company if companies can recognize that diversity is actually needed on an individual basis. Like the leader, the manager needs to understand this is what this person needs at this time, and then the company has the flexibility to accommodate that.
Yeah, and from my side, and that's probably the last thing I'm going to say, I would let you finish the meeting, Amanda. But from my side, what I would like to encourage all of you is to think about yourselves. Evin, Valentina, all in the group, Elisa, Lenka, that you are going to be those managers of the future, and you are going to be the ones bringing the change in the organizations, because nobody's going to do it for us. So if we are going to go into the corporate world, we are going to take this change, we're going to be able to achieve this change by ourselves. So that's my message. That's the way I wanted to finish at least my intervention in this panel. And I want to thank all of you for joining. And well, I'm not going to close. I'm going to let Amanda close in the panel.
Well, thank you, Cris. And Sophie, did you have any final things to share with us before I do a wrap up?
Well, no. I really enjoyed listening to the discussion. One point that made me reflect upon is should we change or do we expect others to change? Of course, it's something in between. It's something in between because if you want to be a purist, there is no reason why we should adapt to a non-diverse environment. That's not fair. And there is no good reason to ask anybody not to be himself or herself in a working environment. At the same time, the best way to change things is to change from within. So if we just reject the environment that we don't like and don't try to adapt and go in and convince others to change, that's not working either. So while there is no reason for you to not be yourself, there is a reason for you to try to explain to others what are those biases that you resent that maybe are not perceived or it's not done on purpose to exclude people. In many situations, it's just happened because this is how the group has behaved in the past. So I think we all have a role to explain, make it more visible, and try to find common ways on how to step by step make some progress. But we need to be active in this step by step change.
Thank you, Sophie. I think we have lost Amanda again. Because of the internet. Oh, she's back.
I think it's a really good point, though, Sophie, that even from an experience that I can talk about myself, I think there have been points where I believe that I had a very good understanding of this particular topic, and then something would happen that would make me think, gosh, actually, there's still more for me to uncover and to go a little bit further. And I think probably I'm now I probably am more honest with myself today to say that my learning journey is continuing and will probably always continue. I'm not sure if I ever will get to the point where I can honestly say that, I fully understand all of the difficulties that different people face, or the unconscious behaviors that I have displayed towards people that have made them feel excluded. And I think I just do think it's a continuous journey, or that's certainly how I feel about it.
Yeah, wonderful comment. I agree, Sophie. Thanks for that. It's really a work in progress, and I think it's up to all of us to educate ourselves, but also educate our organizations, right? And help whoever that other is to understand where we're coming from, right? So I think that takes a certain amount of self-confidence for sure.
I have a question for the panel. I'm sorry, I said that I was going to finish, but okay. That's the last question. Do we feel more comfortable, more optimistic about our career opportunities, or do we feel that how is the feeling about the future?
I'll let the students answer this one.
For me, I feel more confident, actually, especially when I'm surrounded by people who have this optimism and who have this confidence. It makes me feel confident that we can do whatever we want. We can go to the positions that we want.
If I can add a few things, is that nowadays we can see that the companies are focusing on diversifying their workers, their workforce. They put in place some plans to include everyone. So yeah, I am optimistic for the future and how the companies will integrate everyone and don't do any segregation or anything like that.
Well, thanks for this insights. As a summary and to finish this conversation, I would like to say, okay, we agree that it's going to be a difficult path. It's going to be full of hard work and effort. But if we do our part, we can open the doors for a more inclusive and a welcoming working environment. And actually, we do it with our skills and talent. And that's actually the main message of this panel, to let you know that as difficult as it may seem in the middle of a pandemic to think about career opportunities in the future, that we're in the right track. And that's my main message. Thanks for attending this panel. I love you so much, girls. Thanks for joining us. And well, have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Cris.
Thank you.
Oh, here, sorry.
She's back.
I'm here now. We have a big storm on my hill. I don't have this lovely sunshine like Sondra behind her background.
It's storm here,
and my internet doesn't like it. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody. We really appreciated the time taken by Cris and Sondra and Spencer and Sophie to join us in setting up this panel discussion. And we hope that it's helpful for your students. And we hope that as things calm down with COVID, that we can do more things together in the future.
Look forward to that.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks so much to PWN, and thanks to Cris and the Diversity and Inclusion Club. This is your first event of the year, and I think you can say that you've started off the year great and excited to have more.
Perfect. So we look forward to something in January, February timeframe.
Excellent.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.